Ah, there you are, Miss Walker. Good, good. Take a seat quickly. I'm impatient to start my lesson. My young friends, a very exciting discovery, unimaginable up until only a few hours ago, has come into my hands and has finally allowed me to complete my study on the mysterious Youkols people. Lights, please. The Youkols are a people from the far north about whom very little is known. They live far away, very far away, on the frozen borders of Syberia. This distance and the climatic conditions of the region, which are unfavorable to human existence, have limited the size of the Youkols population and kept it out of reach of the scientific world. The handful of slides that follow are actually the only documentation we have in our possession. It was a Russian explorer who made these drawings and took these photographs 100 or so years ago. Today, we owe what we know about the Youkols people and their culture to him. We know that the origins of the Youkols date back to the last ice age. Curiously, evidence of their presence has been found in Western Europe, and more precisely in the prehistoric caves at the heart of the Alps. This people, it seems, undertook a long migration over centuries towards the far north of the globe. The reasons for this migration are due to the importance of the mammoth in their craft, trade, and culture. They used them for transportation and as beasts of burden. The mammoth brought them meat, skins, fat, and ivory. Man and animal lived in symbiosis. There's no doubt about it. Mammoths started to drift away from the region due to changing climatic conditions, and the Youkols followed them to the north, to the edges of Syberia. Prehistoric cave drawings, identified as Youkol in origin, first led me to the extraordinary hypothesis that the Youkols had managed to domesticate the mammoth. They are, to the best of our knowledge, the only prehistoric people to represent a man riding a mammoth. Today, because of this genuine mammoth skin effigy, identified by myself as an authentic Neolithic object, I can confirm this hypothesis. Youkol forebears managed to tame mammoths. Prehistoric man uses little imagination. He draws what he sees and represents scenes from real life. This familiar day-to-day object is actually a children's toy. As we have seen, Youkol existence was inextricably linked to that of the mammoth. They used its skin for clothing and to make the roofs and walls of their houses. They used the tusks to build the frameworks of their homes, as well as weapons, tools, and jewelry. Curiously, the disappearance of the mammoth 12,000 years ago had no immediate effect on the Youkol's way of life. It seemed that for a long time after, the people maintained their strong bond with the mammoth through the centuries. As incredible as it may seem, the Youkol people have continued right up until the start of this century to feed themselves on mammoth meat and to use the skin for clothing and shelter. Their ivory craftwork industry is still flourishing. It would appear that to preserve ancestral customs, the Youkols learned how to exploit through the centuries the large number of frozen mammoth carcasses that were perfectly preserved in the ice of the Siberian tundra. They have been able to live mainly off this enormous freezer stock for almost 30 centuries. As plausible as this explanation may seem, it seems it is not enough for the scientific community who, I will confess, is greatly perplexed by the question. In the absence of acceptable scientific evidence, we have to make do with Youkol shaman artifacts. The research department that I have the honor to represent today lends no credence to the myths and legends that these tribal charlatans peddle. We have to take their stories at face value, mere tales to while away the long Siberian winter. The legend of the Siberian ice ark is a very good example. You are invited to find out for yourselves from the pamphlet that I had passed around to you. This legend would have us believe that today, somewhere on a lost island to the north of Syberia, there are living mammoths still in existence, a sort of hangover from the Ice Age. This small herd has been miraculously preserved for more than 120 centuries by the Youkols' tender care. And the island on which the pachyderms are said to live is called Syberia. My friends, I advise you to resist the temptation you may have to believe in this pish and tish. The island of Syberia is not charted on any map, and the idea that mammoths have survived to the 21st century is an idle scientist's pipe dream. The Youkols were sadly among the first victims of the colonization of continental Siberia led by the Russians in the 20th century. The Kolkhoz and Sovkhoz systems, as well as the exploitation, disdain, and humiliation people had to suffer, marked a definitive break in the Youkols' traditional lifestyle. And since the collapse of the communist regime, the Youkol population finds itself confronted with the same political and social upheavals that other Siberian communities are experiencing. There are two consequences to arise from this. Some Youkols have lost their tribal identity and have integrated into the Russian population. Others, however, have sought long and hard to re-establish links with their ancestral culture that was lost under the Soviet regime. Now, at the start of the 21st century, the last true surviving Youkols have gone to live on the vast territories of their ancestors. Nobody knows today where they live or how they survived. Their very existence would be a matter for speculation if they did not turn up periodically at the tundra's most isolated fur trading posts to exchange mammoth tusks for essential items. There ends my lecture for today. Thank you for being among us today, Miss Walker. Please make your way to the laboratory where you will find your mammoth doll. There are also photocopies of my lectures should you so require them.
Professor, it's me. I've come to pick up the mammoth doll.
The doll is waiting for you there, Miss Walker. Please take good care of it.
Don't worry. I'm beginning to get quite attached to it myself. Can I trouble you just a little longer?
With pleasure, Kate. I'm all ears.
I would have loved to study at a university like this.
No age is too old to start learning, my dear.
Maybe, but you know, the eternal student and all.
You prefer being an eternal lawyer?
I have more important things to deal with. Live problems, not things that died millions of years ago.
Everyone has their own priorities, my child.
I must congratulate you for your lecture. You were right. The subject is absolutely fascinating. I never believed that mammoths could be so interesting.
What you heard was only the tip of the iceberg, my dear. But if I have at least awoken a passion in you, I'm only too proud.
Did Hans Vorarlberg agree with your hypothesis on the Youkols being able to tame mammoths?
Now, Hans was no man of science. His pathological obsession was to find mammoths that were still in existence. Such a hypothesis is somewhat overblown, don't you think?
You don't believe in it yourself?
Mammoths died out thousands of years ago. Of this we are certain. Today, the only mammoths in Syberia are frozen ones.
Do you know where Hans might have gone after his stay here in Barrackstadt?
No, but I would not be surprised if he left in search of the Youkols, or what is left of them today.
What would you say about seeing Hans Vorarlberg again? After all, you could come with me and help me find him.
Young lady, you are very kind. I'm far too old for such escapades.
Your Hans Vorarlberg sounds uncannily like the one I'm looking for. Can you tell me a little bit more about him?
He was always a mystery to me. He never said very much, and never quite seemed to grasp what you said to him. He expressed himself instead through his incredible mechanical contraptions. His inventions, I admit, have been much appreciated by the university. The few times we really did talk, it was about his strange interest for mammoths and a doll. Some sort of doll that obsessed him.
Arriving in Barrackstadt is an amazing experience. I've never seen such a station.
You came by train?
Yes, in a kind of clockwork train with a spring mechanism that winds down regularly.
You mean you drive a train? Young ladies of today never cease to amaze me.
Oh, no, I'm not the engineer. The train's engineer is actually an automaton. I am sorry, all this probably sounds very strange.
A clockwork train, driven by an automaton. I once knew a man long ago who could have invented such a train. It was he who designed the bandstand in the main square. To think that he was even capable of creating such a gadget. He was astounding, a true genius. But oddly, at the same time, he was also almost a child. It was as if his mental and physical evolution had definitively halted at the age of 10. Can you believe that?
Yes. I think I can believe that. At least I'm beginning to. My train stopped in a peculiar aviary. It's very odd. A lot of bird species seem to seek harbor there.
Ornithology is far from being my favorite subject, but I must concede that the station is the pride of the university. It was initially intended for teaching purposes, but then birds started arriving from all around the world. It seems that there are still rare species breeding there and flourishing.
Are there? Can you give me an example?
I have been told about a kind of bird with peculiar habits. Let's see now.
The Amazon?
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. I'll leave you in peace. I hope I haven't disturbed you too much.
Sorry? No, not at all, my dear child.